All right, so welcome to another episode of Discussions by Domain. Today we have the pleasure of Rashad Bajwa, President and CEO of Domain Computer Services, BizRatings, and 360score.me. Rashad?
And Apprentice IT.
And Apprentice IT. Rashad, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So today, Rashad is going to dive into us. I've had the pleasure of working with Rashad for about 1.5 years now. He's taught me a ton about business, giving back, and reputation and culture within organizations and how to actually look at that. So today, I wanted to have Rashad on to talk about reputation specifically across 3 different domains that he knows about and is executing on in a business space every single day. And I wanted him to educate our listeners, Northeast executives, business leaders, on how is this impacting his organizations, both internally as well as externally, and what you guys can all, action steps you can take to take advantage of this. So Rashad, why don't we start with where did this reputation is your wealth slogan come from and develop?
Sure. So, and this goes back 22 years now, where, me and Michelle started Domain right out of college, not knowing much about building a business.
Exactly.
And we found, and it grew and it scaled organically, but we found that the real secret to our success was the performance that we did for our existing clients and the word of mouth referrals that we got. And so we knew at a very kind of early phase that our potential success was in our own hands based on the reputation that we were building in the eyes of our clients and then using them as references, so on and so forth. And so that was the foundation behind where Domain grew over all of these years. And also what brought about the other products that we went after later on, more recently, BizRatings and 360score.me, essentially going after that same fundamental, which is reputation is critically important, not only to small businesses like Domain in order to get clients, but when evaluating who we wanted to use, whether it be staff or whether it be vendors, their reputation was pretty much the most critical component for us.
Yeah, so when we go out to the market, right, we are typically talking with staffing firms, accounting firms, law firms, consulting firms, and the typical response that we get, and we had Adele on earlier in another episode, but is that these B2B professional service firms are all growing from referrals, right? And that's the common thing. But then it's just so unpredictable. Yep. Right? So how did you take advantage of this reputation that you've built over 22 years and turn that into a device for growth?
Sure. So, and you're absolutely right, meaning that organic growth came from reputation and it came from referrals. But you can't, it's not predictable. You can't plan around that. You can't scale around that. You can't scale over time as your reputation kind of trickles out. But we wanted to create a mechanism where rather than allow the reputation to just trickle out when a client found it, advantageous to refer us or somebody had a need and asked about us, we wanted to create a mechanism to put a bullhorn to that, to actually spread the reputation that we had with the outside world. Kind of our motto was, if you're really good at what you do, if you're an exceptional provider, don't keep it a secret. Yeah. Let the world know. And so that's why we came up with BizRatings quite a few years ago now, which was essentially similar to Domain. Even though there might have been other marketing companies or other IT companies that were way better at marketing than us, we knew that we had an impeccable reputation. And we knew that if you asked our clients what they thought of us, that would have been the best way to know who we are and what our experience, what people's experience would be. So creating a tool to get the feedback from your clients and then broadcast it out to the world, that's really what brought BizRatings out. And so we found, or we knew at Domain, how important reputation was for us, and we felt that if we could create a tool to allow other companies to broadcast their reputation, it would be very powerful. And that's what BizRatings does now, meaning we help companies broadcast their reputation in the eyes of their clients using customer satisfaction surveys to the outside world, so that way hopefully their next client, their next prospect, knows what they've done for others and will hopefully be attracted to that.
Yeah, I'd like to dig into the nitty gritty a little bit of Biz Ratings
sure.
because when I first came on board, obviously I didn't know how that tool worked
Sure.
and how it benefits businesses. So if you could touch on what is a customer satisfaction
Sure.
survey, maybe from a high level, but then dig into exactly when is your customer getting that survey?
Right. So actually, I'll start with the background of where Biz Ratings came, because a lot of this was kind of just serendipitous in regular business. It kind of came up. This is going back quite a few years before email surveys were a thing. Our first customer satisfaction survey was a fax that we sent out to our clients that basically said, how did we do? Evaluate us on XYZ criteria. And then there's a little bit of a hook. You'll get into a drawing for a $50 gift card or something like that. Okay. So this, as you may imagine, was quite some time ago. This is like before SurveyMonkey and stuff. We actually got a really good response. And meaning a response rate, even though they had to fax back
on faxes.
On faxes, a customer satisfaction survey. And just as kind of a little side note, we didn't even think about it at the time. We definitely weren't intentional about it, but we had said, okay, if you share a nice testimonial about us, and if you're okay with us sharing it as marketing, we'll put you in this. We'll send you a $50 gift card. We got so many exceptional pieces of feedback from our clients, and we're like, I didn't know they loved us, or rather, wow, they're so well spoken. Yeah. Like and it occurred to us, this is the best marketing that we have. And so, way back when, what we did was we just decided, you know what, one of these really good testimonials that we had, let's put it on the back of our business card. So we put it on the back of our business card. We put it in some other marketing material, and all of a sudden we started getting a lot of positive feedback as to, oh, you work with so and so, and then. And this is what they say about you. Immediately, we're like, my goodness, our reputation, this thing that had been hidden in our clients' heads, now that we put it out in front of people, it is the best marketing we could ever have. And so what Biz Ratings does now is...
Do you still send faxes?
We don't do faxes, right, exactly. No more faxes. So luckily, technology has improved significantly. And so what happens is, for a domain, for example, as soon as a service ticket is completed, as soon as that status is changed to completed, a email survey goes out to the client, meaning the user who experienced the transaction, and is asked, how did we do? And they'll score you on a 1 to 10 scale, and then that feedback, those comments, come back to the company, and then the company now, obviously, good, bad, or otherwise, bad comments or good comments that you want to act on. You get both, and they're powerful. The bad comments are your failures that you need to figure out how to improve. We actually tell our clients, when a client is unhappy with you, it is actually your opportunity to win a client for life.
Yes.
We very often have, because Domain's an exceptional provider, we very often have clients that never really, the boat was never really rocked too hard with us, meaning they've had a pretty smooth experience. They've never really had anything hit the fan too hard. Yeah. But I'll be honest with you, they don't necessarily know how good we are. And I would never rock the boat or create a crisis
to do that.
Yes, yeah. But the reality is those clients of ours that went through 9/11 with us, or Hurricane Sandy, or things along those lines, those are the clients that we have for life, because they know when something went south, this is the quality of partner that I have. And so we tell folks, look, if you're sending out customer satisfaction surveys, which by the way everyone needs to be doing. Yes. If you're providing service to your customers, if you want to be a best in class, you need to know what they think about it. And it can't just be ad hoc or, whenever you feel like it. It needs to be with almost every single transaction. And so the customer satisfaction survey, when you get a poor feedback, even when we respond back and somebody says they accidentally this just happened the other day, somebody clicked on 1 or 2 just by accident. Yeah. And we immediately reach out to them and say, look, apparently something went south. And they're like, oh, no, I just accidentally clicked on it. No, I was happy. Even in that instance, you are bringing to their attention how laser focused you are on customer satisfaction. You are reminding them that I care what you think. And that sort of laser focus is incredibly powerful. So that's the ones where, they're not too happy with you. quality assurance, you have to do it. But then if they really love you, not only is that a good pat on the back for your staff and for yourself,
Exactly.
but it's the best marketing possible. And we give people the ability to turn those into online reviews, onto Google reviews, and then those Google reviews are one of the most significant pieces of data that is used for Google and other search engines for SEO, for search engine optimization. So it's not a coincidence that if you do a search, for example, on Google right now for computer support, in New Jersey, Domain is if not the top, one of the top providers. Our SEO is pretty good, but it's not unrelated to the fact that we also have more Google reviews and Biz Ratings reviews than most anyone else.
Yeah. So there's two threads there that I want to kind of walk down. The first thread is, and you touched on it at the end here, is how do you get your customers to respond, right? Everybody's busy. They just maybe had a computer issue in our case, and now they're getting requests to do this. And I'd just like you to dig in a little bit of how can companies incentivize their customers to actually provide great feedback on these reports?
So number one is this. So for example, we just had a staffing firm. So, Domain is an IT services firm. So when a computer support ticket is done, a survey automatically goes out. This staffing firm sends out their surveys automatically when a placement is made. Okay. So it's a little bit different. Yeah. They're asking about what was the experience about with the placement? Would you use us again? So on and so forth. In both instances, what's happening is that immediate notification right when the transaction happens. So that's key. You have to send it out within 24 to 48 hours of when the transaction happens. Okay. If I ask you 2 months down the road what you think of Domain and you haven't really engaged with Domain in a month, not only if you do respond, it's not going to be real and as authentic just because you've gone through 1,000 other experiences. That's one. And the other is your likelihood of responding is going to be phenomenally lower. So Biz Ratings, if we, for our clients that send out customer satisfaction surveys on a transaction by transaction basis within 24 to 48 hours, their response rates are as high as 60%, 60.
Wow.
Right? So that's a very, very high response rate. Those that say, no, that's too much trouble, I'm gonna send it out to them weekly or monthly or quarterly or something like that. Those response rates are way lower, like between 15 to 20%. Okay. I mean, dramatically different. Yeah. So that's the timing is one thing, but more important is your behavior on their responses.
Okay. So this is something that you can ask them to do the survey, they complete the survey, but you better be responding.
You better be responding. So if somebody comes back with a positive survey, and you positively affirm that by responding to them, thanking them, something along those lines, surprisingly, they're going to be more likely to do it again.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
If somebody complains, and this is even probably more significant, if somebody complains and you don't pay attention, or you respond in 2 days after the complaint, what's the likelihood that they're going to respond to the next survey?
Slim.
No. Slim. Why? But you've trained their behavior. I mean, this is I don't want to call it Pavlov's dog because these are not dogs. These are your most important clients and humans. But they are going to respond to you in the way that you that makes sense, that you have made make sense for them. And the reality is that if the joke that we have in the companies that do this the best, and Domain does this very well, if you want to get the leadership at Domain to jump, there's probably no better way than to give us a bad Biz Ratings review. Just because there is that laser focus on it. It will get to the right ear or wherever it needs to get to as quickly as possible. And so you train your clients to the behavior that you reinforce. And we have found companies that do not pay attention to these, that do not reinforce to the client, look, I'm paying attention to this, or I saw that feedback, thank you, or what can we do about that? If they're not reinforcing that, clients are going to ignore it too.
Exactly.
Why would they not?
Yeah. So the next line weave that I'd like to go down with this is obviously these so for domain, these are going out after our technicians, our engineers are solving an issue for somebody and rating that engineer almost specifically, plus the company.
That's right.
But mostly that engineer. So it brings to light that every single engineer on our staff or in the BizRatings customers is getting rated individually almost. So really quickly, you're starting to see either a rise to the top or an overall employee's performance in their job. So if you could talk a little bit about that, and that brings to the forefront the reputation of that individual, either within your organization and also externally with your customers.
Yeah, so that's right. And so what we found was, so it started off on a company basis. You know, on a company basis, Domain has a reputation in the eyes of our clients, and we want to know what that is so we can behave better when we need to behave better, or show off, show that reputation off to the rest of the world. But to your point, exactly right. We found with every transaction, there's humans tied to that transaction. And so when somebody is providing feedback about what's going on with Domain, they're also providing feedback about the individuals that worked with them. And so we were able to find out that we were able to measure the metrics, not only of the customer satisfaction of Domain, but of these individuals. And so over time, each staff member at Domain now has an individual reputation in the eyes of the client. And later on, we'll kind of skip ahead to some other areas as well, where look, that's not the only reputation that matters. But for the purposes of BizRatings, it's what is the reputation in the eyes of the client. And we now know at Domain's reputation is basically the cumulative reputation of the reputation of our staff. There is no world in which Domain is amazing and our staff sucks.
True.
Or the reverse.
Yeah.
You know, there's no world in which we have amazing staff, but everyone just hates Domain. They're very much correlated. They are actually the same thing because, I mean, I'll be honest with you, and we say this all the time. Domain is a professional services business. We don't have a patent on some special widget. We don't sell Microsoft Windows Server Domain Edition. It is the exact same Windows Server that everyone else has. This is about our people. It is about our processes, and it's about our reputation. And the reputation is not just some sort of kind of separate thing from us and our behavior. It is the cumulative effect of our behavior with our clients, with each other, but with our clients over time, and that is what should drive more business to us going forward. And so measuring or for our staff to know, and for us to know which one of our staff have an exceptional reputation in the eyes of our clients is not just kind of interesting. It is almost everything. Not everything, but almost everything. Meaning it's a very significant piece of us being able to evaluate their contribution to the team.
Yeah. So I guess we'll finish up with BizRatings and the surveys and customer reputation with what is the ROI you have seen for businesses on the BizRatings platform, getting the reviews, handling both negative and positive issues?
Right.
When you're talking to the leadership that are implementing these, what is the ROI that you're seeing?
So we're in a brave new world when it comes to reputation and the reputation data points that are available online. In certain industries, like for example hotels, they're ahead of professional services. If you are a hotel and you aren't paying attention to your TripAdvisor reviews, you have a big problem right now. Like you're going out of business. Yeah. If you're a restaurant and you're not paying attention to your Yelp or TripAdvisor or OpenTable or whatever it might be, there's a couple of different ones. But if you're a restaurant and you're not paying attention to those things, you got a big problem. So business is paying attention now, or has a sense that reviews matter. We were just talking about this a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
We don't even buy a phone case
Won't do it.
without reading the reviews on Amazon.
$20.
Right? 20
bucks.
Without reading the reviews on Amazon. So to use a IT provider that you're going to be spending thousands of dollars with, potentially, maybe hundreds of thousands, whatever, and not know what their reputation is sounds insane, but the reality is there's not a lot of content for it right now. And so we're kind of in a brave new world when it comes to professional services and reviews. There's not a lot of reviews in professional services, and so our clients are really seeing a huge benefit by being early adopters of this sort of thing. You can, for example, if you're a staffing firm and you start getting Google reviews, most of the other staffing firms who are your competitors may or may not have that many yet. And so you have an opportunity to kind of take a little bit of a lead. And so how impactful is that? Well, SEO and inbound leads and Google search are everything, meaning that, Google is not a almost $1 trillion company for no reason. It's because it took over Yellow Pages. It took over a lot of other mechanisms by which people find who their providers are. And so we have found, like, for example, domain, a solid portion, anywhere between 20 to 40% of domains inbound leads, Adele would probably be able to tell you better than me.
Yeah.
It might even be higher than that, are driven by SEO, and that is driven by, to a significant portion, the reviews that we have. And so if you are a service provider who gets that now, it's like the company, it's like the hotel on TripAdvisor 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I don't even know what the time frame is, that understood that people are using this as a mechanism to pick where they're going to stay. People are using this as a mechanism to identify who their providers are going to be, even if they don't believe Google reviews, because I get that, by the way.
Yeah,
with a little bit of cynicism, like, do you really believe that? Whether you believe Google reviews or not, Google search algorithm pays attention to it. Yeah. And so, and it does help prioritize your responses. And so therefore, getting Google reviews is significant, whether you believe in them or not, and it will drive people to your door. Now, once they drive people to your door, once people are at your door, you now have to convince them and close them yourself with your reputation, however you're presenting it on your website or whatever the case may be. But the return on investment is hugely driven by this fact that there is a market opportunity to drive inbound leads to yourself if you can get reviews out there before your competitors do. And in a lot of industries, it's a wild open market. We were just talking the other day with one of our clients who does fitness centers. Okay. And we did some searches. And the reality is, for some of the keywords that they were interested in, there was very few people or very few competitors that had any substance or any quality reviews. And so with this client being able to have the opportunity to start using this tool, just in a very short period of time, boom.
They're going to be up in the rankings.
They're going to be up in the rankings.
It's going to show up.
You still got to run a good business.
Exactly. You still got to provide.
But this is what brings them to your door.
So, and from a marketing and sales perspective too, to just follow up on this, when you saying SEO, we're talking organic. Organic is free. This isn't paid advertising. This is all organic advertising, which is phenomenal. And it's also it's social proof for further down in the process of the buying process.
That's right.
Right? Is here's how our clients respond in real time to our engineers or to whatever your services you're providing.
And so the biz rating, Google reviews are a little bit different, but the biz ratings reviews, those get posted on the website and all of that sort of stuff. We have had instances where clients have come to us and said, we've been referred by X, Y, and Z, right? Existing company. We go to existing company and we say, oh, thank you for the referral, because that's our standard process. They don't even know who these people are. And then we connect the dots later on. They read a review, a testimonial, through biz ratings, through that, and they just are of the mindset now of, well, if they use them and had this experience, I know who they are. It's like a word of mouth referral. It's only we gave them the mechanism to create that, as opposed to the old world, which is you just wait for somebody to refer. And then that's not going to necessarily happen.
Yeah. So that I think that's a phenomenal overview of where reputation plays into the business side of things and actually executing your product or your service. Right. We started to touch on, and let's fully go there now, is the employee side of things internally now. So that was all external, how the external market looks at the business. Yeah. Now, I'd like to go into the internal side. Okay. So employees, executives, management, leadership. How do we all know that I have a reputation within the organization, I just may not know what it is, right? It may be hidden. I may have an ego that I think I'm great, but then my coworkers may think I'm terrible and I don't know.
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about this. How did you discover this?
Once again, kind of serendipity. You put yourself out there, you start seeing problems, and then figuring out the connections between them. And so we came up with this tool called Biz Ratings that was measuring the reputation of what clients thought of us. And we knew that was powerful. But what ended up happening was we had some staff who were exceptional at keeping clients happy. And we were incentivizing that by giving, spins at a prize wheel and things along those lines. And so we'd have some of the staff who were getting these spins at the prize wheel, which is great. They're taking care of the clients. Everyone's happy. But then we saw some of our other staff like, what's going on with so-and-so? He or she keeps winning this, but, excuse my French, they're an asshole.
Yeah.
No, meaning the client may very well think that this person is exceptional because they've figured out how to put on the show. They're good technically, they've kept the client happy, so on and so forth. But when it comes to being a teammate, they throw people under the bus, they talk behind people's backs. I mean, you fill in the blank as to stuff that's not good.
Exactly.
So, and now this is just one example, but the point here is how you take care of a client, how you behave in a client's eyes is important. It's not everything. How you behave, how you interact with the rest of the people on your team is significant as well, arguably more important. So that's where 360 Score came in. Okay. A lot of people are like, Rashad, you got domain, you got biz ratings, you got 360, like what's, do you have ADD? Are you just going after, different thing? They're actually all, domain obviously is the long-term company and the kind of the proving grounds where we learned a lot of these concepts around reputation. But Biz Ratings and 360 are just looking at the same problem, just in different angles. Both of them are measuring reputation. It's just from a different purview. So what we did then was we said, you know what, we're going to create software that's going to not only help Domain identify the staff that are exceptional at keeping clients happy, but who within Domain is keeping the rest of the team happy. And by the way, this doesn't just mean, how do you get along with others? This is an overall evaluate your coworkers. And we were always doing traditional reviews where you would have a supervisor doing the reviews. We were even having kind of, reverse feedback to some extent. But we were very sure that, look, reputation is not just what your supervisor thinks of you. It is, in varying degrees, measured by how you interact with everybody. And the closer they are to you, their opinion of you is probably more important and maybe more accurate. And so if we can give folks a mechanism to share, okay, what's working between us, like what's working out well, so I can give good feedback to you. What are areas, blind spots that maybe you have? If I can maybe give you some feedback on different areas that I think you're doing really well in or things that you're not doing well in, that would be helpful. And initially it was scary though.
Yeah, I know one of the things that could come up is like something could potentially go wrong here, right? There's a lot of ingrained relationships, maybe for years, 5, 10, 15 years, and maybe things have been kind of under the carpet for a little while, and you just learn to deal with it. Yeah. But then you bring out a tool like this, you start reviewing everybody and giving some critical feedback, right? I guess the final question for organizations, and we were kind of just touching on this, is, how often do these things, hey, I'm a brand new company, I really want to gauge the culture within my organization and let people know how they're doing. How should I get started, as well as how often should I be doing this?
Got it. So 360score.me is the actual site, and we do it in two different ways. We do it, most people will do it as a subscription. Okay. To do it on a regular rhythm, because we have multiple types of surveys. We have 360-degree review surveys, which is what at Domain you've experienced. We also have skip level surveys, which is a different type of survey where managers get to appraise kind of how other managers are doing from their own staff. Another type of, just another different view on reputation. And then we also have company happiness surveys. And so a lot of folks want to have a mix of that in order to kind of to get a sense of where the culture of the organization is, in addition to just the traditional 360 surveys. So they'll do a regular rhythm, and the most common rhythm is a happiness survey approximately once per month, and a 360-degree survey. Normally, they'll start off doing it quarterly, but then ultimately it might be semi-annually, just because you don't want to do it too often. You don't want to exhaust people with survey fatigue. So that's important. We also have had other people who have just come in and said, I want to do a 360-degree survey. Because, Anthony, you have to realize, prior to 360-degree reviews existed. The concept existed. What a lot of people used to do is they would either get HR or an outside consultant to sit with individuals to essentially like rat out everyone else.
Yeah.
And what people found, and there's a lot of other HRMS tools out there too that have software that do this where it's not anonymous, it ends up being all fluff. And people just play it safe.
Correct.
And just say, yeah, he's a nice guy, just because you got to tick off that box. And so a lot of people, I think, have had a negative impression of 360-degree review surveys. And so we have had people who have said, look, I just want to experience what this is like. And so we've had people who have just done one-time surveys.
Okay.
Just to kind of get a sense of where their organization is at.
Makes sense. The other thing, too, I think we should touch on real quick is that a lot of at past organizations that I've worked for, it's always one way. It's always manager to employee. This is your yearly review, and this is what we think of you. And for, I think, most employees, that becomes very frustrating. It becomes like, it's just everything is up in your eyes for me, and and I have no say in that, and neither does anybody else around me have say in that.
Right.
So you can touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, and the 360 is that important for us because we think that the risk actually in managers is as much, if not more, than in regular staff. So for example, if we have a reporting relationship with each other and I report to you, traditionally, to your point, you're the only one that would have an opinion about me.
Yeah.
What if you're struggling? What if you're not good at evaluating talent? What if you're the problem?
You're holding back the organization.
And not only are you holding back the organization, what chance do I have underneath you to ever shine or get my true message out to anyone? And so that's why it's really important. And by the way, this is not to mean most managers are good. That's why they're managers. Most people have some level of skill. But the reality is, the vast majority of managers, I can tell, I'm one of them myself, became managers not through some sort of official management development program where we know how to do reviews and ask the right questions and build people. No, we just kind of were around a long time, good at what we did, and then at some point had too much work and had to have other people work with us to get it done, and then they reported to us. And so do we have some sort of magic formula to know how to improve and develop and do reviews? No, most managers I know actually doing reviews is so foreign to them, and they literally just, it's a tick off the box for them as well. So getting that feedback, the reputation is just important in the other direction, as well as from the other people in the organization. And what we've found is it's a tool that really helps managers, especially managers who may not be that well versed at coming up with the content themselves in an annual review.
Okay.
They get the benefit of all of the other people that work with that individual. They give you material now to work on.
And potentially open your eyes to things you're not even seeing.
To things you're not even seeing. If they're working with you on a more regular basis, they know your blind spots better than I do. It's actually, if you think about the traditional model, it's unfair to think that I, as your manager, would be the only one that knows or understands your blind spots, let alone can coach you on them. Okay, maybe I should be in a good position to coach you on the blind spots, but from a visibility as to what your blind spots are, why would we not ask everyone?
Exactly.
And so 360 does that. Now, 360 also has some artificial intelligence in there, in that even though it asks everyone, it doesn't take everyone's opinion equally.
Gotcha.
It's weighted based on proximity to how people work. However, just because I report to you or you report to me does not mean that my score of you matters more. Actually, if you've are an established employee of the organization, your score of me is going to count just as much as my score of you.
Gotcha.
So it creates a real well-rounded view of what that individual's reputation is. Like, at the end of the day, we're writing software, and our software's goal is very simple, and that is to closely approximate how a real reputation works in the world. And the way that it works in the world is that guy walking by on the street, what he thinks of you actually doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But this person that you work with every single day, their vote really counts. And so our software wants to work the same way. The person that you just meet at the water cooler, maybe their opinion of you over a game of ping pong matters.
Yeah, exactly.
Nowhere near as much as the person that you work with day in, day out.
Every single day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a valuable tool, and my mind's already racing on the multiple different ways that this could be potentially used.
Good. Well, we want the feedback. We like to iterate.
We'll keep it going.
Yeah,
but all right, so what we'll do is we'll have Tyler link to Biz Ratings, domain, 360score.me, all in the show notes, and people can reach out and definitely take advantage
Sign
of
up
these.
for a demo, see how it works.
See how it goes. I mean, I think today, everybody, we got a master class in reputation management that I didn't get until I joined Domain, which I appreciate. Thank you, Rashad. Real quick, I like to do rapid fire questions so people can get to know you a little bit more as an individual.
Okay.
So we'll start with if you could go back to your 21, 25-year-old self coming right out of Rutgers, RU Pride right there.
That's right.
And what would you tell individuals in your situation, as well as, I guess you could even address apprentice IT, and what would you give them to have success, however they may want to define that term?
Got it. So uniquely, we actually had started Domain right around when we were 21.
Exactly.
So we were plenty audacious already at that point. So I wouldn't say be audacious, but get help. So I think we definitely had plenty of audacity, confidence. That's how we put ourselves out there in order to kind of give Domain a shot. But we also had maybe too much confidence, too much ego, where we didn't ask for help.
Okay.
We had maybe a little bit too much pride, and so we learned mistakes the hard way about developing people, how to do sales properly, things along those lines. We had a little bit too much confidence in ourselves. So to put yourself out there, to not be afraid to ask for help, especially when you're 21 and you're just getting out there in the workforce. You want to be a giver. There's no doubt about that. Like you want to be able to help people. When you're 21, you may have limited ways in which you can help people, but you can work your butt off.
Exactly.
Right?
You got time and energy.
You got time and energy. So work your butt off and make sure that you create value for the people around you. However, don't be afraid to ask for help too. It's okay to get a little bit of assistance and then find a way to pay them back later on. So, ask for help.
Ask for help.
Broaden your network.
Love it. Let's switch gears. I'm an avid reader. I know you are as well.
Yeah.
Introduced me to a couple of books. Let's give the audience maybe the book or books you've gifted the most or that have changed your thought process the most.
Okay.
On things.
There's a whole bunch of them. One I'm going to get to and it may not be the one that you think, but Leadership and Self-Deception. Is that one that I've given you before?
It's on my radar.
Okay, it's on your radar. Okay. So Leadership and Self-Deception is one, and it's written by like the Arbinger Institute.
Okay.
So it's not one of these kind of Amazon going through your LinkedIn guru feed ones. I like a lot of the guru feed ones too, but this is a really good one. So this came to us from our business coach, Hardin Byers, who a couple of other folks here use as well. It was mandatory. Before you get into coaching with him, you had to read this book.
Okay.
And specifically, the whole point here is it's leadership and self-deception, and it's about giving yourself perspective, and how we deceive ourselves into seeing the world through our own eyes. It's a lesson I think that we are all always learning. We're all the center, the primary character in our own play.
Correct.
For our entire lives, and empathy and a whole bunch of other things are developed by realizing that the world is a lot more than just us. And so this leadership and self-deception really is a teacher, or it teaches us about how to see your role, especially with the people that you work with, outside of your own narrow view of how it made you feel.
Okay.
It's pretty cool.
Okay. Yeah, that's a little teaser for the guests of the podcast. Maybe have something in their future there. Finally, I'd like to touch on Domain is huge into community support.
Yes.
So I could list off the top of my head the community support groups that we are a part of that you've developed as well.
Yep.
For the listeners out there, the audience, what are some of the charitable organizations or nonprofit organizations that you're either involved with or support as a company level or even individually?
Right. So we have been heavily involved with the Boys and Girls Club of Trenton, in particular in creating a future domain tech academy with them, creating skills for some of these younger students coming through there as a feeder into Apprentice IT, which we didn't touch on, but that's another program that we're doing with the community colleges in order to provide technical skills to communities that we frankly weren't looking at before, and creating this next generation of tech talent. I also would be remiss if I don't mention Women's Space.
Yes.
Women's Space is something that Michelle is on the board of Women's Space, but near and dear to her heart, and Domain is an avid supporter of them as well, focused on protecting women, victims of domestic and sexual abuse in the local area, giving them opportunities. So we try to give our support to them as much as possible.
Great. And we will definitely link to those as well to make sure people can check them out.
Sure.
The final question of the day is, who is a thought leader, innovator in the Northeast region that maybe the audience doesn't know too much about, or that we should give special attention to and look into deeper to understand what they're doing, how they're potentially changing the community, they're changing the business space? Who is a thought leader that you would recommend?
So there's a lot going on in Trenton now, and I think you're going to see something in the next 5 to 10 years in Trenton, kind of hopefully a renaissance of more energy and interest going down in that direction. I hope that we can be a part of it as well. But I would look for an entrepreneur or somebody who's doing something interesting down in the Trenton area. There's also some people who are creating these new enterprise investment funds that I think are tied to certain communities, and I think there's some that are tied to Trenton. I would talk to some of those. Edison Partners, I know, is a client of ours. I'm interested to know if they are thinking about investing in some of these local, geographically focused investment funds where the state, I think, is going to contribute dollars to match if investors put some certain funds in. So I think there's a lot of cool conversations around that.
Great. So everybody, Rashad Bajwa, thank you so much for being on the show. This has been a pleasure. Reputation is something that I don't think is talked about enough. I think more attention needs to be brought to it. I think it brings on better companies, better cultures, better communities. And I think at the end of the day, we're all spending a lot of time at the organizations that we work with. We want to know that there's a reputation within those organizations and that you have the ability to learn, grow, develop, and be heard at the end of the day. And all of these tools that you've produced, that you've made, that are growing, give us the ability to do that. So thank you.
Welcome.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thanks so much.